on the screen, and to be able to bring the voices from the different Pacific Islands, the different perspectives, just a wonderful platform. You know, last webinar we had a more commercial orientation, and I think we're going to have a really different flavor and story today. So looks like lots of attendees are coming in. What do you think? Should we kick off?
I think while they are coming in, yes, please start the introduction, I think, and then they join, and yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, Pacific greetings. My name is Kyle Stice. I'm the Executive Director of Pacific Farmer Organizations, and we are supporting the work of grassroots organizations who are working with farmers in 14 Pacific Island countries. And I'm going to be co-facilitating with my colleague, Isolina. Maybe you want to introduce yourself, Isolina.
Thank you very much. It will be a little co-facilitation, but I'm Isolina Voto. I work for COLEAD, which is a non-for-profit association of private sector operators working worldwide in all continents, focusing, Jeremy will tell us more afterwards, but focusing very much on private sector and the ecosystem, but always with very strong relations with smallholders. That's why we value very much this partnership. So looking for the session today.
Great. And I think probably it's proper to introduce everybody else who's on the screen before we get right into it. So maybe, Selena, you can introduce Jeremy to us.
So Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us today, Jeremy Knox, because he couldn't be at our lunch. You remember, I see some of the same people that, and thank you very much for coming back, by the way, that were at our first session. We had the chair of our board who was very, very pleased with the session. So today we have Jeremy. Jeremy is the DG of COLEAD, the organization I work for, and he's a strong background, of course, on private sector, on the agri-food sector, engineering from high schools and universities here, but also in other continents, in South America, extensive work in Africa and other regions of the world. Expert on private standards, certification, ACP producers and exporters to the EU, but also on local and regional markets, and of course, a very strong also accredited coach. So I'm sure that the conversation of today would be very much of interest, and we value also very much the partnership with the PIFO and the Pacific Farmers Organization, how you are known today. So Jeremy, if you would have a few words for us. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Isolina, and thank you, Carl, for these introductions, and good morning. Good morning to all of you, of course, to fellow panelists, but also to all the participants. I think mainly from the Pacific region, but as I heard from the first session, also from other parts of the world, and this is also the essence of what we are trying to do together here today. And we started a couple of weeks ago with the Pacific Farmers Organization. So this is the opportunity for me to thank, of course, already, and to start with Kyle and the Pacific Farmers Organization for initiating this collaboration together. I'm going to share very brief words about COLEAD and a couple of insights that I believe relate to, of course, the main topic around these sessions that we're organizing together. So it was COLEAD. We're a private sector, not-for-profit association. Our members span across 50 countries, mainly cooperatives and SMEs active in the production, processing, trading of agri-food products, with a historical focus on fruit and veg products. But we also have within our association a lot of service providers, professional associations, basically all agents of this ecosystem, and all our members basically are together, and because they believe and are committed in improving the contribution of the agri-food sector to reaching SDGs. And so that's the big picture for us as an organization. And when the deep dive into those SDGs, of course, there are a number of SDGs, and we know how agriculture and the food sector is at the center of many of these sustainable development goals. Clearly, historically, we've had a clear focus on contributing to poverty reduction, food security and nutrition, and now increasingly on environmental protection. Now, I talked briefly here about our mission. Our vision is encapsulated by two words: growing people. And so the common denominator of all our technical activities centered around skills, competencies, knowledge, information, to bring back really people at the center of our activities. Our activities range from research innovation, brokerage, monitoring of regulations and standards, market insights, technical assistance, vocational training, access to finance, of course, networks and alliances. And we're able to implement these activities by collaborating with financial partners, raising funds amongst donors. And today we of course lucky to be able to work with different types of donors with whom we build programs. And one of the major programs that we're currently managing is called the Fit for Market Plus program, which is an intra-ACP program funded by the EU and the Organization of ACP states. And it started 2 years ago, and it has two specific objectives. This program, the first one is to support smallholders, producer groups, and SMEs to comply with market requirements on domestic, regional, and international markets within a sustainable framework. That's the first one. And the second one, since the program was set up in the aftermath of COVID-19, is really to accompany operators to seize new opportunities. And within this seizing of new opportunities, of course, processing activities occupy today a central part of that. Just a couple of figures, without going into too many details, but just to show how this processing topic has become for us of crucial interest and importance. So our programs are usually demand driven. And Fit for Market Plus is a demand-driven program. So it's about sending an application for support, and we analyze it, and then we build an action plan to implement activities by co-creating these activities, and we implement them together. And since the start of the program, so we received across 920 applications for support from over 50 countries. And out of these applications for support, around 550 come from producer groups, cooperatives, and SMEs. So that category of operator. The other part comes from the ecosystem around. And if we look a bit deeper into the profile of these companies across, transversely across all ACP regions, we have close to 80% of these operators, which are primarily active on their domestic markets. We only have a third which are also active in terms of exporting to international markets, amongst which the EU. Over half of these 550 companies today are active in processing activities, and 80% of all these companies work primarily with smallholders and associated communities for the produce. So this is just to highlight a bit the profile today of companies whom we work with. And it's also important to mention that the average size of these companies, was over half of these companies which have applied for support in terms of economic activity are generating a turnover of up to 50,000 euros. So that's just to give a couple of insights into the profile of the companies today through the program, and hence so the importance, but from a thematic perspective on the processing part, because firmly believe this is fundamentally key to add value at source, to diversify risk, to contribute, of course, overall to improve food security and nutrition on the one hand, but on the other hand, and this is more structurally linked to what we're doing also with other farmers organizations across ACP region, and what we want to do with the Pacific Farmers Organizations is the strengthening of links between the farmers and being themselves in producer groups or directly linked to more formalized economic operators, aggregators, processors. So that's a very important part of our work today, always centered around people. To go back to the vision. So again, I'm very happy to be here with you today. Apologies for the first session. I was abroad I was in Kenya, as a matter of fact, and I'm really looking forward to listen to the stories, a bit of your inspiration, and hopefully we'll be able to exchange and share some insights. So thank you also for all participants and to panelists for your time and for sharing your stories. Thank you. Back to you, Kyle and Iselina.
That was great, and great to have that perspective. And of course, those who are not familiar with COLEAD and the Fit for Market, now you've heard some of the opportunities that are available, and also just seeing the reality on the ground is that there are a lot of small and micro enterprises and a lot of agro-processors who are looking for information. And so today we're really happy to be able to share some information from the Pacific. And I think maybe we'll jump straight in. Is that okay with you, Iselina? Okay, so I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Father Petero Matairatu, who is a Catholic priest from the island of Taveuni, which is Fiji's third biggest island. And Father Petero is the principal of the Tutu Rural Training Center. And he'll tell us a little bit more about it, but they offer a wide range of courses for young married couples, young farmers who are working to earn an income from their traditional lands. And an aspect that has evolved as their program has evolved is in the area of agro-processing. And so we really want to hear the story from Father Petero, and I'm sure that it will be insightful for many of the participants who are also looking at how we can extend this opportunity of agro-processing beyond just companies with big facilities. But both of our speakers today are really talking about how you can take advantage of some of these agro-processing technologies at the community level, at the household, the village level, with very limited facilities. And so I'm really excited and give the floor now to Father Petero.
Mulavinak, and good morning to you all. Thank you, Kyle, for the brief introduction of myself. Yes, I shall jump straightly into my presentation today. And thank you for the invitations to be part of the panelists. Next slide, Kyle. As part of the aim of the Rural Training Center, part of it is to empower our participants to be more autonomous and to take charge of their own life in the rapidly changing world. As we were developing the training center in 2017, we have the privilege to have Richard Beyer came over and does a workshop to our participants and to our staffs here. This was the initial stages of the setting up of the food development unit here in Tutu. And the food development unit is more on training young women, young farmers and farming couples on a regular basis, that they can become more in tune on value added. I just said 2 weeks ago, we have a farmer from a local settlement here, local village, who brought over a sun-dried breadfruit chips just to be processed into flour so that they can take it home for their home consumption. It's just a typical example of the aim of the Rural Training Center Food Development Unit is to train people to utilize, to value add the agriculture produce from their own garden, which is so vast, like being wasted when it's in seasons. So the aim of the Food Development Unit is to create that stages of value added of locally grown fruits and vegetables, and then it can be transformed into food products, which is really the high mode of today of us on the promotions of food and nutrition security. And next slide, Kyle. And as we develop the training center, there is a transformations of these agriculture products into value additions and to and make it more tasty for us. As the breadfruit flour, which is marking on replacing wheat flour into breadfruit flour, into the locally content. And these are some of the things that we train our participants, and we value their presence, that they can continue on hand-on the idea, and we have the facilities on site, they can bring it over and reproduce other products so that it can be making use in whatever situation they are in. Simple demonstrations of jam, chutney, pickles, chips, either in plantain or breadfruit, cassava, dalinitan, taro chips, and sauces of all flavors. These are the products previously waste, but now being converted into an agriculture and more nutrition value product. The promotions of the idea of value added has promoted this agriculture product into more fancy and more attractive products that it used to be. Being wasted into a nutrition value of it. And at the same time, so we have contributed to the nutrition and the food security of the locals. At the same time, also, we helped in the rise of the fighting of non-communicable diseases, and at the same time provide incomes for the local women to provide, to sell all these produce into the local market. When they have Saturday markets, they already put these value-added product into the niche markets, and at the same time earn income for themselves. This is an income-generating project, and at the same time helps in food and nutrition security. We are in for the educations of the local communities, the rural communities, which add on to the recognizing the traditional recipe that is available within the local context. Just on my last slide, thanks, Kyle. We can move on to the next slide. That there are constraints as we move forward. There are constraints that we have faced, and especially financial constraints. We need to upgrade our training facilities. At this stage, we can fit into the small room for training, and we need to upgrade more facilities, equipment, so that more modern equipment and make it more fast and efficient for communities when they come over for the development of their new products. At the same time also, the consistency supply of raw materials, because of the climate change, it has the different patterns now have changed also, the different seasons for the different fruits. And at the same time, sometimes of these fruits now doesn't bear at all. And we really try to work with to create changes, also to be smart on working with alongside the changes of the climates, and at the same time we train the locals on how we can remodify the upgradings of the development of food products. At the same time also we need further technical training inputs from outside technical experts that they can help us in promoting the value added of food agricultural products. The priorities will be it's an income generating for Tutu also, at the same time provide income generating for the local communities. I think that's just briefly of who we are, and we continue to develop at the moment on the varieties of agro-processing unit that can provide value-added products for the local communities. The center of our training is human formation in our value. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Yeah, no, I think it's a wonderful model to develop a food development unit in a rural area to access technical expertise like Richard Beyer, to be able to develop a range of products using local raw materials, and then to bring participants through and expose them to that. So I think the model itself is really very important. And I don't know if you caught some of the last of what Father said, but the unit generates some revenue for itself by selling its products, but then the participants are encouraged to do their own products, so their livelihood is there. So I really think that there's so much that can be gleaned from some of these units. And maybe Father Petero, before we move on, maybe just tell us one example of where some of these products are sold. I remember an example of the big rugby tournaments that happen on your island, and maybe you can just give us an example of what the value chain looks like.
Okay, for our chips are sold into the local primary school and the local canteens for primary school. And when we have some of the local shops, they are selling our chips and sauce. They provide their orders, and then we supply them the products to them. So they sell it at their own shops. And at the same time, also when we have festivals around the island, we have our food stalls for Tutu, and then we sell all our products. We have a booth there, and we sell all our products for the local consumer. But more importantly, we provide the products for the local consumers.
Yeah, fantastic. No, thank you, Father. I think those are really good insights for all of our participants to hear. Working at the community level with this simple technologies, but making amazing products. And I think this is one of the things we want Richard to pick up on the end, is how can we help people with small facilities make high quality products? And I think that's a wonderful point. Iselina, do you have any thoughts before we move on to the Federated States of Micronesia?
Yes, I do not see yet questions, but I think they will be coming, while the other presentations come in. But perhaps, have you seen the young people? Because the problem in rural areas sometimes is young people, that we have difficulties in retaining and starting their business or prospering into the value addition. And thanks to your intervention and sourcing the technologies from you or others, but kind of making a living in rural areas instead of just migrating?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a question there, Father. Are you seeing the young people adopting some of these opportunities?
Very much, Kyle. The participants are here from the age of 18 to 23, and they are the ones who we trained in value-added processing. And most our single women participants have continued on with the idea of the value additions of making jam and chutneys and chips in their own communities. Some are bringing their dried fruits, breadfruits, for processing and using our equipment. And then they utilize the flour made out of breadfruits. So these are the little helps that we can do so that it can change the perceptions of the community, that they can look into the products that is there in their own community, and we can help in providing nutrition product for the family as a whole. But especially in helping in the fighting the rise of NCDs here in the Pacific, in Fiji.
Oh, that's great. And I think it's a great transition also to our next speaker. But as Isolina said, the question and answer is down in the bottom. So please, participants, if you have specific questions, put them in there. There will be panelists will be answering them if they can. And then some we will bring into the plenary. But thank you very much, Father, for sharing those insights. But talking about local food, I want to introduce our next panelist, who I would say is one of the Pacific's local food champion. So Emihner Johnson is from the island of Pohnpei, the state of Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia in the North Pacific. And she runs the Island Food Community of Pohnpei, a local grassroots organization, and they've been acknowledged by the World Health Organization with an award for Healthy Islands recognition in best practice. And indeed, Emihner herself has done an amazing work to try and change the perception and take people back to their local foods. And we're excited to hear how agro-processing plays a role in getting people to eat their traditional foods, Emihner. So without any more delay, we're so thankful that you could join us this morning, Emihner.
Thank you, Kyle, and good morning, Kasalelia from Pohnpei, Micronesia. It's an honor, and I'm very happy to be part of a more developed or more knowledgeable group of people in the sense of local or food processing. Island Food Community of Pohnpei is a small non-government, actually at the beginning, it's really a non-profit organization that want to promote our local foods for subsistence, for income generation, for food security, and also to promote, enhance, keep our environment, healthy environment, ecosystems. So in our work is actually targeting the food crops, the indigenous foods that have been neglected by like the young people, which is they're now in the middle age and going to be in seniority. For the past 10 years or so, I was working with Island Food. Also in the North Pacific is a bit, our change of diet is a bit different from the South Pacific. We are more into the Western influence of food, which is a cheeseburger and French fries is more enticing to get the attention of somebody that is being educated, and somebody that is as a salary that can buy. And, the social status is some of the, is what drives this lady who started Island Food Community of Pohnpei to have this NGO, because Pohnpei is our way of farming is the traditional farming system is an agroforestry. She she was so strongly advocating against the imported fertilizers that has chemicals, which is, we have a competitor on the island, which is the Chinese farm that uses a lot of chemical fertilizer. and you know, their vegetables grow fast. I just, since this is a storytelling place or session, so I just wanna, I would just mix what makes us wanna do it. You know, where are we? We're really neglecting our foods, and at the same time, it is when the non-communicable diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and others that have been claiming, I would say claiming, because it's it rises as in, I would say 40. It's not 30 anymore. It's about 40% of our people. And we are now I think we're number one in obesity, FSM. And, you know, these health crisis. So she tend to take some of our local indigenous foods and have it analyzed. Our islands are very small, and we don't even have a lab that can analyze or the nutrient analysis. So she has to take it abroad to have them analyzed. This is Dr. Lois Engelberger. And what she found out, based on her studies, is our local foods are very high, especially our bananas, very high in vitamin A, in beta carotene, in calcium, magnesium, all of, you know, most of those essentials, vitamins and essentials that is needed to fight against the NCDs that we have. So like it's two or three things that we call it our chief. We call it the chief benefit. CHEEF, an acronym. C stands for our culture, to keep the culture going if we promote our foods, and health and environment, to enhance, not to damage or ruin our healthy environment, and the economy, little revenue that can be collected or generated during if we process our own food, and also the food security, the sustainable way of eating, I would say, from the farm to the tables. So when I hear about Jeremy, your presentation, well, we are so far to get to where marketing and, you know, all that. We are still in grassroots trying to change behavior or attitude of our local foods. It does affect the students in schools when they're growing up. So the question of if the young people are interested in our local food processing, maybe one out of 40 will you know, express herself or himself to be interested in this process. But when so we tend to we were thinking of what ways to bring our food, so our local, we're also like PG, the way we cook our food is, you know, boil, you know, bake and steam, you know, a piece of talo, a piece of yam, or, you know, boil it or steam it, or, you know, put coconut cream. They, like I said, when after the Second World War, when U.S. claimed our islands, then the shift changed. Actually, now when we talk about shifting, it's no longer shifting. It is the norm of not eating our local food. Now, over these years now, it's not known. Rice is a stable food so it's not locally produced. It's important, but it dominated the food list in FSM. So taking our breadfruit or taro into flour is one initiative that we want to test it out. And it does work. It does work. We're, like I said, it's at most 5 people in our NGO working at most. So it's a small NGO. We still need to develop our improve we need structure, our building, our tools, equipment to run this. We've been using ohm blenders and milling machines that are not. It's not running a factory. It's on processing our flour. So our status is still a very micro production that we want to. Yeah, it does get attention, but it's like on and off depending on our financial status of Island Food. The board members and even myself, I've been, I think it's an overstatement, Kyle, that you say about me. But back in over the 14 years I've worked. So it's the first 10 years. Yes, I was a vibrant person, but I'm getting old, and I wish somebody can really, because I believe that baby steps is better than no steps at all. At least if we can still keep 0.01 of our local food consumption, it's something that I don't want my grandchildren to lose. And I think that's in short. If you have any questions, I can answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Emihner, and thank you really for sharing some of the uniqueness about Micronesia. What a special part of the world. Emihner, I remember us visiting one of these roadside stalls, because as you said, mostly there's small shops and you buy tin things and imported cookies and all that. But maybe you can tell the participants about these roadside stalls and the things that they're selling and how those women came to be at that type of business.
Thank you. Actually, when I think this is also one of the success stories of Island Food, is before it was established, this NGO, local food is something that is not being bought, it doesn't, the value is not money value, for trade. It's so now you can find stalls, like on a daily basis, all assorted methods of cooking of breadfruit, different dishes and banana, different dishes on a daily basis, which was like 14 years ago or 10 years ago. You don't see this. It's not even a local market selling local foods. When I was in Fiji, 1996, I was like, wow, people do this, like bringing so good quality food crops on in the markets, and it's like rows and rows. I've never seen that in my whole life, like only in movies. So when I came back and then this NGO started, I was starting to work there. I was so captivated by the founder that we would travel. She buy her taro by the roadside, and then she bag it up And then we travel and she doesn't eat in the restaurant. And we were like, what? Why? You know, this is our time because we've been working mothers and we cook. So when we travel, we want to eat, you know, we don't want to cook, or we don't want to stay in those, you know, rooms or that has the oven. And she would, no, let's eat our local food. And we would be so pissed because we like to. But anyway, yeah. In a sense of having, I think it's really the status, like I mentioned. It's something that people don't back then, before it started to sell the local foods. Actually, it is something that is only eaten at home, or you don't sell it, and also it's for tradition. But now with a lot of people, working mothers, and also the capital of the Federated States of Micronesia is located here, and the National College for all Federated States of Micronesia is also here, and the Western Tuna Commission is here. It, you know, it brings a lot of like different people from the world here, and they don't have place to plant their own food. And so the economy here on selling those ready-made food alongside the road it's good income for some of the mothers and grassroots people. So it's we're more like we're still producers, not an NGO that is marketing. We're marketing and also training the people to process for longer shelf life their fresh fruit during season and other climate. When the taro badges are the title search that was just like what, last month, it Micronesia. So the outer islands are, you know, the small atoll islands. The search does intrude in their taro badges. So it's one of our trainings to the community to turn the damage into good. So they've been utilizing the machines that were left with them to sun-dry it first. Those that their machines are still working, they're turning their damaged taro into flour, which is good. So that's one of the highlights of island food.
Thank you.
Process.
I think Richard Beyer might have a question. Please, Richard.
Well, not really a question. I was in Pohnpei really at the start of the island food community when Lois was tremendous tour de force. I did 2 workshops from memory. I'll have to look at the old report. I think it was around about 2004, somewhere in that region. I can't remember exactly. But from memory, much of the things that we looked at were very, very, the step to make them shelf stable and wholesome and available all year round. The steps required would be very, very small. Circumstances have changed. Lois sadly passed away, and then I took a stupid job with the government here, so it's sort of faded into the background. But my comment is that it would be a very, very simple task to actually take Pohnpei from where it is now into something where income can be generated and much greater use. From memory, it would be a very, very simple step. That's my only comment. I'll take my hand down if I know how to take it down.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. And really, Emihner, thank you so much for those perspectives. And it was great that you ended with that story about how the taro patches are inundated with salt water, and farmers have an option to harvest, sun dry, and process that without losing it. And I think these kind of tools agro-processing offers for climate adaptation is really, really important. So thank you for sharing that link. What do you think, Isolina? What was the big takeaway for you from listening to the story from Island Food Community?
Thank you very much, Emihner, for sharing, from Micronesia, this story. Actually, we work, I work myself in the past years ago, and today in COLEAD as well on some programs which are also underutilized species, which are not traded, not even sometimes recognized at their value in the international markets. However, we have really big success. When I say we, operators, smallholders, MSMEs, etc., that we interact with and we work with, have incredible stories actually of, and in some cases exporting, be local regional markets or exporting these crops with, as Emihner has said, it has been imported, and not only imported, it's not the fact that they are imported, it's the fact that they are unhealthy food, put it that way. It's not the imports the problem. So, all this value by local communities in more remote areas of local food is very interesting. The ways how to get it to the next level, where it can be really recognized as a very, very high quality branded origin, and and still community, of course, driven. And so thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing that. What I see in the chat is that not many questions, but many kind of support of thank you for sharing those experiences. And in the same time, we see that there are people from West Africa and from the Caribbean and so on and so on, because the stories are the same across continents as well. So I can understand how people relate to that. But I believe as well, of course, Emihner has mentioned it, the support to women that it can bring in areas where employment is not easy. I mean, just an income is something, and obviously with all the investment within the local communities, it means when women have income and an employment, the positive effects we all know. So thank you very much, and we look as well to interact further, and yes, and support in any way we can. But well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Iselina. And so we move on now to our last speaker. And again, to let our participants know, if you have any questions for Father Petero or for Emihner, please put them into the question and answer part of the Zoom there. But we want to turn now to Richard Beyer. So Richard Beyer is a food technologist. And if you were on our last webinar, he shared about his experience, making very high quality products that are available in shops and exported. And indeed, he's been working with almost all of our large agro-processing businesses. But I love this about Richard is that he also wears another hat, which is that he can take his vast experience in food technology and he can work really at the grassroots. And since that is the topic of today, how can we extend this opportunity to rural communities with simple technologies to take advantage of agro-processing? Richard, we'd like you to share some of your insights for our participants who might be wondering, how, they don't own a big company, or they're not envisioning a massive factory, but interested to take advantage of some of these opportunities. What are the lessons from, I won't list the number of years you've been doing this, but what is some of the insights or takeaways you can share with us?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, everyone, for giving me the opportunity of joining you. We may be diverse geographically, but we're very close in what our aims and objectives are. I've just listed down. I shouldn't have done this, but there are 12 countries now where I've actually done small scale processing. I'd like to give you an example of one that started here very close to where I live, which made it easy for me to go regularly. It started in August last year, and they were using local crops, mostly breadfruit and tamarind and local kumquats, which I'm sure you all know are very sour citrus. And their objective was to have $1,000 in the bank by New Year's, about 2,500 in the bank by that time. The approach that I take, and this is very, very important, and this information is available to you just on request. The important point to start with is to make sure that people at every level understand that they're making food for other people to eat. So there's two messages in that. The first thing is that it has to be safe. So the first part of our training, of any training that I do at any level, is really the dangers that can occur with mishandling of food, and the fact that it's going to be eaten remotely. People hopefully are going to part with $1 to pay for it. So that's one thing. The other thing is really to encourage people to upskill themselves. Now, this has turned out to be amazingly easy. I've just come from an island 2 hours ago. I was actually on a small boat traveling to get here. And I was working with 3 villages, and it's just amazingly easy to get enthusiasm from people, because they see, in the case of where I've just been, they've seen some nuts, they've seen some tomatoes, beginning of tomatoes, and they've seen soft fruits rotting on the ground, and suddenly they see an opportunity to use it. So when it comes to small scale food processing, the enthusiasm is very, very easy to generate. And it really is, for me, I think I've got 17 small scale processing operations around the world now, around the Pacific, not around the world. And it's, to me, at the start of it, it's just like watching a rose open and come into full bloom. Now, the group in Rovendrouw, which is the one very close to me, are now completely self-sufficient. I don't go down there. I don't go down there every day. I go down once every couple of weeks, sometimes just to collect some of the stuff that they have been making. And it really is important that I make sure that there is a return for effort. Now, in order to make something sustainable, and I'm not interested in something that's just a cookery class, which is not sustainable. I'm interested in something which becomes self-sustaining, and so there has to be a return for effort in that. So, amongst other things, I take the ultimate aim, and I'm now going to refer to a fairly lengthy program I had in Savai'i, which is a remote part of Samoa. And those people now started basically with nothing in a church hall, and they are now fully Codex compliant. They are fully Codex compliant. They are HACCP compliant. This has taken about 5 years, and it has taken a little bit of, no, less than that, 4.5 years. And it's taken them a while to go through that. But I take everyone through that slowly, bit by bit. First of all, food handling, then the opportunities for preserving food, then the opportunities of meeting the competition, of persuading someone to eat our product in favor of something that's imported. And then thirdly, we go on to the niceties or the international stuff, which is then labeling. I've just been joined by a honey eater, so in a moment you'll be hearing a honey eater join me. So we do that, and this organization now is producing. This is the one, Rovendrouw, is producing chips, and they are supplying 4 hotels along our coral coast with chips, which are eaten at the bar, sort of thing. So what they've done. as we've talked it through, they've decided where the market is. What can we persuade people to stop eating and eat our product? Because that then becomes the competition, and you've got to sort of get yourself into that position where you are viable. You're going to sell something. It's consistent. Because the same tamarind chutney is the same 3 weeks ago as it is today, and all those things. So the importance of keeping records, of writing down formulations, we call them formulations, not recipes, and those sorts of things become very, very important. They're stressed. They're stressed because if you pick up a jar of tamarind chutney, we expect it to be the same way as it was last time it was made. So those are the real takeaways, I think, from my point of view. It's very easy to generate the income, but in a sense, you are making a transition from something which is a village level, but something which can open up the door to something which is much, much bigger. And you can rest easy at night that your product is safe, that you've gone out of your way to use a local commodity, a local crop, so that it beats the 2-minute noodles and the Coca-Colas, which should, I'm anxious. I would love to see them wiped off the face of the earth, but it won't happen in my life. But my group in Savai are now making juice, and in fact, it's now being purchased in favor of the local Coca-Cola. So I'm very pleased about that. So those are my takeaways. It's a profession. It's a professional approach, and it doesn't matter that it's a small village hall or it's still a professional approach. We wash our hands as soon as we can afford it. We buy extra material. We buy some gloves. Well, we always supply gloves and hair nets, and we restrict the area so that it's nice and clean. And the minute they walk into that, they think hygiene. So those are really my takeaways. I talk too much, Kyle, but you get me excited about this subject.
No,
so those are my takeaways.
No, thank you so much. And just looking at the chat a little bit, it's really resonating with participants, and certainly the work that you've done with our regional group always just resonates, because there are so many people working in rural areas that want this kind of support and opportunities to be realized. And I think that those takeaways that you shared are really important. And starting with hygiene, thinking about product development, and then slowly moving through that process. And as we talk about what might happen after these webinars, I'm really excited to continue to bring people together, and hopefully maybe in a face-to-face format. This is what COLEAD will be talking about, and to be able to talk at both of those levels, because our presenters last week, they're buying from hundreds of small farmers, and that is a great opportunity that agro-processing. We're also talking about rural people doing the processing themselves, and Emihner's perspective and Father Petero's. And so I would love to be able to have a format where we can really talk about both of those levels, because I really think we need to pursue that within the Pacific, and I'm sure the same is happening in other regions, but we're also separated and isolated by water and all that, so it is hard to kind of learn. But I really appreciate your insights, Richard, and always your willingness to share information. Quite a few of his resources are on our website. Yes, please.
Yes, thanks, Kyle. I have over the years developed a processing manual which covers all those things. And they're available, they're available to anyone who asks. The soft copy, it's a big document, it's 70 odd pages, and during the training we go through it step by step, usually over a period of 4 or 5 days, or no, less than that, 3 or 4 days. But that training manual is available to anyone, and I'm only too happy to share that. And thank you very much for your kind comments, Kyle. We're great friends over many years.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm keen to open it up. So I don't know, Iselina or Jeremy or the other presenters, and then maybe Iselina, you have some thoughts about taking any questions. But really humbled by the different perspectives that we've heard today.
Yes, I'm looking at the chat, and I don't know, people could eventually raise their hand as well as, but I don't see many questions, but just, contributions, the situation in which they are, again, in different regions in the same way, trying to market local food. I mean, really underutilize internationally and make it known. And yes, thanks. So there's a lot online because I look at it myself, which is this is to say to entrepreneurs the lessons we learned from them, in our work across regions is that there is a lot out there. You see, you have when you start a business, you have to look at resources. You have to document yourself. A lot is free, available. Go to the Pacific Farmers website. Go to the COLEAD website. We even have trainings, for free on every step of the business as well, documented with visuals, how to start, how to process, technology, the different parts. But for even a small business, if you want to take it seriously and progress, you have to learn. What we learn from the entrepreneurs is that skills is a key part, is not necessarily money to start with, budgets, money, is more the skills to do something, is not to ask for a loan necessarily, is to know what you want to do, what is your market, even if it's a very close one, what your customers want, because at the end of the day, you want to market your product. And so the skills is something critical for processing, for agro-processing, because as Richard says, it's not something I just have something and I sell it to you. It has to be processed, quality, safety, packaging, labeling. I mean, there is a lot of competition, even for a local market. And in the Pacific, like anywhere else, you would see people selling exactly the same thing. Well, that this is not an option. You have to diversify. You have within the product or other products. And then the networking part as well is critical, is what our entrepreneurs tell us, the meeting business to business, other entrepreneurs, but meeting as well the people that are going to support you, the Pacific Farmers Organizations, the COLEAD, research, finance. You see, you have to really build a network and be active. And I think, from what we have heard today, these are some of the features. But I think we should insist really that this is the key. And we as I mentioned before, we see it ourselves in great successes of small enterprises that don't want to be big agribusinesses, but are extremely efficient and really into very nice markets and have contributed to the local, to the local economy, really in rural areas. I don't know, Jeremy, if you want to add something at this stage.
Thank you very much, Iselina.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat. Yes, please.
And thank you for the three presentations from Father Petero, Emihner, and Richard. And excuse me if I'm maybe repeating some of the elements Iselina now has just shared, but a couple of extremely relevant insights, I believe, and also inspiring cases and stories. The Father Petero summarized really some of the key issues at the end of his intervention, which I believe are some of the constraints that we commonly see also across a number of countries where we interact with entrepreneurs. the infrastructure, equipment part. And it's not only the fact of, okay, how do we necessarily find the finance to buy? It's also the primary availability of, in some cases, the required equipment or infrastructure. And so this would be something I would be interested, I mean, at different scales, but to also maybe hear more about specifically in the context of the Pacific, from your experiences when it comes to the equipment. So there's of course the fact of making an investment and having the finance to be able to do so, but also about finding the right equipment. And I would be interested to listen about that. Well, we talked about the importance of the consistency of supply and the challenge, of course, that climate change brings to that, amongst other factors. Clearly, again, this is and something that we are observing throughout the different regions, and not only I would say. Well, you could argue that it's indirectly then from a consistency perspective. Of course, it directly affects the quality, can affect, of course, in terms of increased pest pressure, diseases, which ultimately will affect the consistency, or even not, or before getting to the consistency, just the simple availability of the products in the first place. So clearly, and it was mentioned by yourself, Carl, as and this is again something that we saw when we had a scissor effect these past couple of years of major disruptions. Of course, and it started before COVID-19. Then it came with COVID-19. Then we had global supply chain disruptions, the compounded effect of climate change and processing at different stages, at different levels, different sizes. Can and has been identified, I mean, by a number of producers as a way to adapt, to mitigate part of these impacts. And I think this should be really highlighted. So the third element shared by Father Petero was about the importance, the need for the technical and training inputs. That directly links back to what Richard shared, and one of his key messages in terms of the need to take the ownership of the continuous upskilling, which is something we fundamentally also believe in, and we see ourselves as one of the elements there that can support individuals. Of course, not alone in isolation, but again, because we believe that's the first and foremost driver to change and to contribute to the transformation of food systems. So clearly, I mean, we're more than convinced that it's extremely important in an ever-changing world and in a very disrupted environment. We heard from Emihner, and it was an extremely inspiring story, and again this importance of really highlighting the links between, of course, protection of the environment, the health of the people, and contribution to livelihoods. And again, here I'll come back to one of the elements Richard referred to when he talked about the return for efforts, which is something, of course, we fundamentally believe in ourselves as well. That there are different branches to be able to have a viable and sustainable activity, and of course the economic branch is fundamental, because without that the rest is directly threatened. Structurally today, this is a huge challenge within the agricultural sector as a whole, and we all know at production level the pressures that are there to make just simply a living out of producing food, small scale. So this has to be reminded, and goes back to, of course, the notion of fair prices, of fair trading practices, etc., which are fundamental. One element of concern on our side is of course around youth, where we see, of course, the huge potential, but also in a number of cases the difficulty today to attract also the new generation of actors of change within the agri-food system, and we don't have all the answers for that. But clearly, if in the first place we can't find an economic viability around that activity, it will of course make it very difficult to attract this new generation. Independently from the importance, we all believe as a society, the agri-food system brings, as we mentioned throughout the presentations and at the start. And last but not least, two last things. Richard talked about food safety. Of course, I mean, it's often we often forget about it and forget about if food safety is not there. I mean, the consequences can be extremely grave. And this is a specific topic we've been working a lot on at COLEAD, and we continue to work on because I mean, we talk about the health and risks to human health, which are of course fundamental. It's a prerequisite, and as a key message, this relationship to time, and coming back to Emihner on the kind of step by step. I think it was referred to as taking baby steps. We believe a lot in those in the step by step approach. It was referred to also by Richard in terms of giving a perspective about the time it can take by going step by step, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes 7, 8 years, 10 years. Of course, in the meanwhile, there needs to be, of course, a complementary activity in some way or the other, a way to make a living. But it does take time. And linking back more structurally to some of the issues and concerns around agriculture and around the agri-food system today that we see is this bias when it comes to the relationship to time, relationship to nature, to drive some changes, to be impacted by some changes, and simply the time it takes to work around all these with the natural elements, and the time it takes to change behaviors, to implement some new practices, some new processes. It takes a lot of time. So it has to be a step-by-step approach, and we need to be conscious of that and have the patience around it. Back to you, Kyle.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. I think absolutely this step-by-step approach is critically important. There has been a lot of work going on in agro-processing, and there's a lot more that needs to be going, and it doesn't a lot of times we have to just repeat what we've been doing, and I think that's good for development partners to hear as well, is that these initiatives need time and they need constant follow-up, and I think that those messages are coming out quite clear. I don't know, while we have a few minutes left, I don't know whether Father Petero or Emihner have any other thoughts that they would like to share as we kind of begin to wrap up our discussion today about agro-processing at the small and micro level. Father Petero or Emihner, do you have any closing thoughts?
Thank you, Kyle, for the chances that you. For me, on my side, I think this is one level that we need to advocate on as Air Force farming organizations. We are more advocating on soil health, more advocating on farming, the agro forestries and all those, the farm level. But more importantly, also we need to touch onto this space, like if we have like a face-to-face gathering, and more moving into the incorporation of all three levels, so that to make it more attractive to the younger generations, that we are doing this so that we can have a future for the agriculture industry, so processing industry. The niche markets need to be tapped on, and these are the levels that we can need to integrate on within the farming organization or at the Pacific level for the farm organization. And it will be I think it will be best to advocating on the agro-processing level or the farming level. Thank you.
Yeah, great. I absolutely agree with you. I think it is a very important kind of next step, and everybody has shared that it has to be viable. Huh? The young people have to see that there is, I think Richard said, return on time or return on investment in time. You have to be able to demonstrate that. That's what the young people are looking for. And if they don't see it from agriculture and agro-processing, then they look to other industries. And so, Emihner, we want to hear from you one last time. What are some of your thoughts?
Thank you. There are the similarities of what Father Petero has mentioned. And yeah, the technical information that came from the three experts. I forgot to mention that one of the challenges that we have in here is because we're so far distance and our islands are small. So for island food, keeping a balance of not destroying our environment with factories, and yet we don't have, like on the island, we have to import packages, containers or how we package our value add, our processed foods. And I know it's not a big deal, but like I still believe that we need to help ourselves before we move on to exports or marketing outside. But just to get it so it's in a fine package and brand it, or get some catchy phrases on the packaging. It's also we need a lot of that, and like I said, so it's the packaging itself we need to import because we don't have those kind of capacities here, or where we're not yet to that developed in making our packages and all that. So a lot of we also need to standardize, like, so we can, even our people in mainland and other parts of the world, that we can only sell to, or we can only send, they come and buy the flour or crumbs of dried taro. We can only sell to our locals that take it or send it to their folks in mainland US or Guam. Even Guam is the closest, but we need to meet the standard food safety or whatever the requirement of Guam's import department, for health of the people, or if there's a safety. So we haven't even come close to that. So I just want to mention that that is where we try to target young people, having them have contest of, have an island food song, so through the schools, if even run a high school co-local club, it just it didn't stay long, unfortunately. So yeah, and it's also the government is the lowest paid. Can you imagine what we need to be? We need to grow our food, and it's the lowest paid department in the government, and so it's really a big challenge. But I know money cannot strip away our foods. So I always keep that in mind to encourage me and other people that we've lived, our parents, our ancestors have lived this long, so we still can live on our local foods. We don't need to import as much as what we are doing now. Anyway, so I just want to mention that, and thank you for all your advices, and thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Emihner. I think Richard, if we can give a last word from you, and I think that this point that Emihner raised was also echoed in the chat and the question. What is the relationship there with these input suppliers and particularly packaging? And so maybe, Richard, people that are listening that maybe won't be ordering 10,000 bags or 5,000 jars. What's this kind of big takeaway related to access to materials and packaging here in the Pacific? Sorry, if you could unmute yourself.
Perhaps it wasn't worth listening to. Anyway, what we did with one organization here in Fiji, Friend, whom you probably know, we got a large corporation to import a full container load of jars, and they paid for them as required. There are a number of companies that are also looking at something very similar to that, where a large company that maybe owe me a few favors because I've helped them out in the past, will actually do that. They'll maybe import too much for their own requirements and allow the small communities to buy off them as required. So there's usually a way around it. Unfortunately, to begin with, it is very difficult, but we're always looking for things like recycling jars. It is possible to buy boxes of lids. So that immediately that gives you an opportunity to use jars, and jars are really valuable because you can put chutney and jam and fruit and syrup, and you can put pickles and everything in jars. In terms of packaging of snack foods, that's a little bit more difficult. There are a few green shoots on the horizon. We now know that there are a couple of bacteria that have been identified which will actually attack polythene, and another one that will attack PET. Now that's the Coke bottles, the polyethylene terephthalate. They're going to take years before they really have an impact, but they're green shoots. Unfortunately, we can't get away from plastics. They're with us, but after I've gone, perhaps another generation, they will be less punitive than they are at the moment. But they are a fact of life. An aeroplane can't fly without plastic. So, they're part of our daily life. We try to keep it to a minimum. The packaging we're using is all biodegradable as far as possible. And you choose your packaging according to your expected shelf life. So you don't overpackage. There's no reason to have a five component laminate for something that you expect to sell at the local school next week. You can use polythene, which will cellophane even, which is a cellulose derivative. So we're conscious of it, Kyle. It's not immediately soluble, but we've found that large organizations are usually very helpful, very sympathetic. Sorry, I can't be complete.
No, that's a great tip. Yeah, and absolutely, packaging for purpose, and I think that so much great learning and in your experience, Richard, is always so valuable. And I'm just pleased to be able to hear these voices from around the region. So last week we heard from the Kingdom of Tonga, we heard from Hawaii. This week we're hearing from Fiji's third biggest island of Teviuni, and then right from Micronesia. And so thank you for this valuable space, COLEAD, for all the participants to engage, and also the panelists who I know have a lot of things going on, but they came out all volunteering their time and to share this. So again, really, really humbled. And I'll give the last word to you, Isolina.
I unmute myself. Really, I don't have very much to add because I think everything has said. As you, I think the very interesting part is listening to the people from the field, the ones that have small businesses. That was the topic of today. That are really struggling. I mean, for different reasons. Environment, lack of support, lack of packaging, lack of it was all said, standardization, testing facilities. You have to ship to other islands, certification. I don't know the Pacific is now, but when I was working in the region, it was one certificator. I mean, for the whole region. These are things, of course. An entrepreneur alone cannot actually solve it. But hence, as well, organizations like the Pacific Farmers Organization and others that can a bit, lobby. I mean, have voices heard. That ultimately policymakers and researchers and investors can really hear the problem of really people in the ground, because sometimes we tend to be far of those and simplify, solutions, and also the fact that sometimes the solutions are much simpler than what we think. Sometimes at the micro level, is kind of basics that are needed and not over investment, taking some of richer, over packaging, doing things too much for the level that is required. So I think it was very, very interesting to hear again from different islands experiences. We look for the next session. What I can share is the date, 25th of June, but of course you will all be kind of notified. We will share as well the presentations as usual and the recording, etc. I mean, all that will be available. My colleagues have put as well, whom I thank with the team, of course, of the Pacific Farmers Organization for the work. The email you can reach us to as well, because sometimes you want very specific, support or linkage with specific programs that we cannot go into detail, but we follow up properly. I have my colleagues in charge of the Pacific as well in the call, despite the time. So that's it, and looking forward to the next session, and thanking all the panelists and all the participants, because for some of them it's very late in some regions to find the time, and sharing as well some of their experiences in the chat. So Kyle, to you, or Jeremy, or anybody who wants to add something.
No, I think that's it. Thank you very much, everyone, for their time, and we will see you all on the next webinar. Thank you. Thank you, Father Petero. Thank you, Emihner.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Jeremy. Right.
Emihner, you
Salamat.
make me want to go and look for a mango after I saw you this morning eating that juicy mango. That's all I've been thinking about, is finding myself a mango. Take care,
You
everyone.
got there. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Zelina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.